Thank you, Michael. I'm bending down here to get something because I'm starting with show and tell today. So, my name is Reverend Jen, and today I brought my pink rabbit. I actually brought my son's pink rabbit. My son is 10, and he got this for Easter. So it's not the rabbit itself that I wanted to share so much as a story about the rabbit. A few weeks ago, my son confided in me as I was tucking him in one night that this rabbit scared him. Did you ever have one of those toys as a kid? You're like, would somebody please take it out of my room? Yeah. 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 Thank you so much. What's your name? What's your name? Emmett. E-M-M-E-T-T. So Emmett shared with us that in the dark at nighttime that he thinks that his animals are going to move, right? I was afraid of dolls as a kid in my room. But the reason why, similar to Emmett, I was so afraid they were going to come to life and that they might do mischievous things at night. Well, my son, when he first shared with me, the rabbit kind of freaks me out. That's how he put it. And so I said, well, would you like to hand it to me? And if you'd like, I can take it out of your room. He said, I'm not touching it. Okay. So that's where we are with this. Okay, I will reach into the bed and take this rabbit out. Now, the rabbit had been in his room since Easter. I mean, months. And something happened to trigger this fear around this beautiful pink rabbit, right? So he did not share that story behind what the fear was that evening. But the next day, I thought, it's kind of weird, right? And what's interesting, too, is I put the rabbit in my own closet, thinking he won't go in there too often, so I'll just stick it in the closet. It's all good. Well, the next morning, I'm getting dressed in the closet, and the rabbit's there, and I was like, ooh. Should I be afraid? It was like his fear had rubbed off somehow, even subconsciously, in him saying there's something creepy, freaky about this rabbit. Now I'm questioning whether or not it's safe to be alone in the closet with the rabbit, right? So I thought, I need to ask him because otherwise I'm going to continue projecting what I think the fear around this rabbit should be. So I need to know the actual story. So I said, Bud, what was up with the rabbit? Why did it scare you? And he said, well, do you remember that movie, The Last Mimsy? Or Mimsy, something like that. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but in the story, this rabbit is sent from the future, some future world in which the earth had become uninhabitable by humankind. And this rabbit was sent into the present to live with some children, and the rabbit told the children, I need your help to save the world. So my son said, I'm so afraid the rabbit's going to ask me to help it save the world. And then he said, and I'm thinking, that's an awfully big responsibility. Right? How many of you have felt that? Right? I think in unity, in our communities, we have been spending years raising ourselves to a conscious awareness of the divine within. We have been filling ourselves with the power of love. We have been filling ourselves with the awareness of God as source, that there can never be lack. We've been filling ourselves with that which can save the world. And yet the moment someone, or the rabbit, were to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I need your help to save the world, maybe not me, Did you guys meet Vicky? She's really good at that sort of thing, right? We might try to pawn it off on someone, or maybe whoever it is or whatever it is that came to us, tapping us on the shoulder and calling us to step forward into that superhero role of being the love, being the light, and making a difference. Whoever it was, whatever the call was, maybe we want to shove it in somebody else's closet. Let them deal with it. But luckily, we're not alone. Luckily, we have community. We have all these amazing people that we've been holding the light with. So as we've raised our own awareness to the Christ consciousness within, we've also been witnessing this journey with everyone else around us. And so now we have in this room a team of superheroes, which is pretty amazing. So today, I want to call you out, calling all superheroes, to call all of you out together, bringing your team together to make a difference in this world. Now, again, we're not alone. Not only are we in community here, we are in community with Unity churches around the world. We are in community with so many people who have raised to that awareness of love, and they are willing to let love lead the way in making positive changes in our world. But we also, as we turn to Scripture, have a model, right? We often call Jesus our way shower. And that way is truly demonstrating how to be a superhero. He didn't wear cape, but maybe he should have. In John 16:33, we read, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." I've always loved this scripture because, life doesn't always feel peaceful. Being in this world, of this world, doesn't always feel peaceful. Turning on the news, oh my gosh, is anything less than peaceful these days? Scrolling through my Facebook feed, which I'm doing less and less because it feels less than peaceful. And I want to maintain that state of peace, and yet at the same time, when we read scriptural stories, Jesus time and again goes up to the mountain to pray. He goes to that place of high spiritual consciousness to commune with the Father within. But then he comes back down off the mountain. And I think for a very long time, the Unity movement has been a movement of lifting people up to the mountain. That we have lifted one another up so that we could pray, so we could meditate, so we could be in that space and know peace. And we felt that peace, felt it radiating through us. And then we kind of look down at the world below, looking down into the valley and go, they've got it wrong. Something's wrong down there, but it's nice on the mountain. And so maybe we've invited some more people up onto the mountain with us. But I think at this point in time, there's been a shift. There's been a call to more service action within our Unity movement, to more going out into the communities and spreading love, to going out where there's been discord and bringing peace. Jesus didn't stay on the mountain, but walked back down into the community. And he also didn't walk down into the community and say, hey guys, I see what's going on here, it's cool. No, he said, I see what's going on here and it needs to change. Something needs to change. The leadership needs to change. Our awareness of how we're treating one another needs to change. And so he called into his community the people who were shunned by many. He called into his community those who could make a difference. And he called together his team of supers, right? He called together the disciples that would then go out and preach and heal. Katie, in How I Use Truth. She wrote lessons in truth, and then she also wrote How I Use Truth. And it's sort of stories of how, in her own life, she used those principles. So it's not just here's the principle, just believe me, but like, I actually lived this, went through this, and here's what I got out of it. Well, what she was sharing in How I Use Truth is that God has no hands but human hands. Right? God's not going to just swoop in and do something to make the change that we say we want to see in the world, because God has no hands but human hands. God's not an external deity somewhere, right? The man in the clouds that's going to just kind of come down and go, okay, fix that, fix that, fix that. God's saying, fix that, fix that, fix that, but by tapping us on the shoulders. Emily Cady writes, if this be true, right, if God has no hands but human hands, then I have in my hand health to give the sick, joy to give the mourning, freedom to give to those in bondage, and money to give to those needing it. Our hands, your hands, are God's hands. Your hands are God's hands. The kingdom has come. And through knowing our spiritual superpower of love, of wisdom, of understanding, we can make a difference in this world. Now again, it's not up to any one individual. Don't fear the rabbit tapping you on the shoulder saying you alone are going to help save the world, and that's a big responsibility. But that collectively, like any good team of superheroes, we are being called to make a difference in this world. So we all have our own spiritual gifts, those where we excel, those things that you know within you, it's like, this is mine to do, this is mine to give. Perhaps you know what it is where you need to reach out because it's those things that bring you to tears when you see them on the TV. For some people, it's anything having to do with children. That's my go-to. I see anything to do with children, the shootings that happened recently, and it just brings me to tears. And I think, I need to do something here because this is where my heart's being called. For others, it's poverty or domestic violence. There is something that calls to your heart, that tugs on your heart. And then we have to ask, well, what's my gift to bring into that situation? And who's in my super team, right? How do we bring our gifts together to go out and do this? Has anybody seen the film Jumanji, the new version? So my husband and I went to see that one. Really funny, by the way, if you haven't seen it. But what we were talking about after the film was the focus on teamwork. It wasn't just about one person, but this collective group of people go into a game. They're like sucked into the game, and they have their own characters that they take on. And each person has like a little button on themselves. It's sort of like boop, boop. And when you push the button, it brings up what are your top 2 strengths and what is your 1 weakness. So if we had buttons, and you could push a button on yourself somewhere, and you go, boop, what's your top strengths? And maybe even ask yourself, what's my weakness? Because if we know, say, our weakness is kryptonite, then we know if we're going off to some planet that's loaded with kryptonite, we need to bring somebody else on our team with us that can handle that. So think, what are my strengths? How do I use my strengths into this? Because in the film, if one person alone were to try to accomplish the mission, they couldn't do it. They needed all the skills. They needed the guy that could read the map. They needed the guy who was super strong, somebody who's super fast to get in there. And then they needed the girl that had the ninja abilities, to sneak in. So it was like this group. We're thinking, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Whenever we're called to do something, it's not just about us. It's about the group. So we can come together as a group and say, what are we going to do? What is my call into this? How do I shine my light, my love into this situation? So for myself, if I could like highlight my little boop, 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 top strengths, art's up there, creativity is up there, right? That's my passion, my joy. The arts ministry was founded because I wanted to be able to use art as a tool for spiritual growth and also for healing, because it's such a therapeutic tool. After the Vegas shootings, was that this summer? Or fall, October, somewhere around there. One of the girls that's on my team at the arts ministry came to me and she said, when this happened, right, my first response was fear and anger and concern and that space of helplessness, hopelessness. And then she saw a little video on Facebook. So some good things come out of Facebook. This little video was a gentleman who said what she was feeling. When this first happened, my first response was the fear and the hopelessness. And then I thought, well, if I focus on hopelessness right now, that's not going to help anybody. But what I can do in his particular line of work was he taught children about kindness. He did kindness presentations at schools. And he said, what I'm doing, that can make a difference. So rather than focus on what I don't want to see more of, I'm going to book more gigs to go out and talk about kindness, because that's what the world needs right now. And that's how I can make a difference. And so she came to me and she said, yes, that video resonated so much with me. I want to do something focused on kindness. And she said, would you be interested in the arts ministry doing a Kindness Rocks project with the elementary school that's right next to Unity Village? I said, absolutely, great idea. Let's do it. So we contacted Jim Blake at Unity World Headquarters. He said, I'm on it. We support you, we're behind you on this. Contacted the school principal, she said, we're with it, we love it, we want to bring this to the school. And we ended up having, our goal was to get 500 rocks, 500 painted rocks. It's a lot of rocks, people. So that we could deliver a rock to every single student at that school. We ended up collecting 616 rocks. Some were shipped from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, from a licensed Unity teacher out there who heard what we were doing. Some were shipped from Massachusetts, from a Cub Scout troop that heard what we were doing and they wanted to participate. So we ended up having churches as far as Topeka, Kansas City area, Unity Village Chapel participated. So we had all these different groups of people participating, painting rocks for kids so we could go in and talk about kindness and talk about rippling kindness in the world. So this was our mission, our team of supers, right? We called everybody together, said, how do we do this? How do we make this happen? And when we set the intention, it came back to us more than we ever could have expected. So we went, delivered the rocks to the students, and now we have like 116 leftover rocks. And then we heard about the shootings in Florida. And again, my heart was just broken open even wider, and thinking, what do we do? What do we do now? What's the next call? And we found out that a local art teacher was collecting kindness rocks to start a kindness rocks garden at Douglas Stoneman High School down there. So I contacted her and I said, well, we happen to have 116 extra kindness rocks from our project. We would love to send them to you. And so she said, of course, please send them. So now our rocks are moving on down to Florida, spreading more kindness where it's needed and more hope where it's needed. And I share this story with you because oftentimes when the rabbit or spirit within taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, here's your next mission. I need you to help me save the world. Our response can sometimes be to pull back, to say it's not mine to do. I don't have the skills. But I wanted to stand up here today and say, when you say yes, you're not acting alone. God has no hands but human hands, but God works through all of us to bring us together with those who can help us complete our missions, to help us make this a better world, to help us bring love, kindness, compassion, to help us be the Christ light in the world. And in that, we can truly make a difference. For as Jesus said, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. The more that we shine our light, others know their spiritual light too. And so it is. Thank you.